Hello and welcome into another episode of Reality Check. What is going on? I am your host, Matt O'Leary, joined as always by my co-host and good pal, Jeremy, aka Jets Chaos. Jeremy, how goes it today, my friend?
It goes well. It goes well. It feels like a long time since last week. I got to be honest. For some
Yeah,
reason, I was like yesterday saying, man, it feels like forever since we've been on. And then I realized we didn't miss last week. It's just been one of those long weeks.
it has been a long week. The Jets have made some new additions to their coaching staff. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the flavor of the week at the quarterback position, which feels like it changes every week. There's a new fan favorite amongst the group. We'll get into that. But wanted to get your thoughts quickly here as we start on the Super Bowl. We haven't spoken since the Super Bowl. The 2025 season has officially come to a close, and the Seattle Seahawks and Sam Darnold are Super Bowl champions. The New England Patriots lose a tough one in the Super Bowl. What were your thoughts?
That defense can still win championships.
Yeah.
It's like, I understand. I mean, that it's been very frustrating as a Jet fan for a long, long time about not scoring points. And I'm not saying I'm off the bandwagon of wanting to draft guys and finally have an exciting offense that scores points. But it's a reminder that, for me, if we start drafting some defensive guys in the draft, that's okay too, because you need to play defense.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I thought they had a great defensive game plan. Completely shut down the Patriots. They couldn't do anything offensively all day. And you know what? Good for them, right? Like, they obviously are a really deep team. Darnold played well most of the year. I don't think he had like a fantastic game, but you can't take anything away from him. He's a Super Bowl champion. And thank you for taking down the New England Patriots. I don't know about you, but I just couldn't deal with a seventh Super Bowl to the New England Patriots in my lifetime.
It was also the way Drake played, and I understand it has to do with offensive line too. I'm not sitting here analyzing the game and saying he stinks as a quarterback, and his situation was very difficult. But it gives me this hope that maybe he's not, because I was fearing that he was going to go on and now be like Brady, Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Elway, like become one of these elite quarterbacks. And I'm holding on to hope that he's just, he's really good. There's no way there's nothing we could do about that. But maybe that's just what he's going to be. He's going to be really good, but stoppable. Like just a really good quarterback, but could lose in the playoffs, beatable if you have a great team, great defense. That's kind of what I'm holding on to, because the last thing we needed was for New England to win the Super Bowl and start a run where this is going to be the next quarterback that gets four or five rings.
Yeah, God forbid, right? Just want to say hello to the people in the chat. Paul O'Brien's hanging with us. What's going on, Paul? Jonathan Lee in here as well. Good afternoon, Jonathan. And look at this, friend of the program, Green Bean hanging. Look at these guys. There he is.
The program.
Gotta love it. Thank you guys for hanging out. Jeremy, let's get into it, because it feels like there's a new flavor of the week at the quarterback position. It was announced earlier that Derek Carr is looking to unretire and come back to the NFL. The New York Jets then hire his former offensive coordinator that he finished third in MVP voting with way back in 2016. And now the connection is being drawn for Derek Carr and the New York Jets. Your initial reaction to that, and let's get it started here.
I don't, it's hard to have a big reaction to any of these names, because what's the goal? You bring in Derek Carr, then what? Like, what's the goal to that? Is the people that are arguing for that, and I'm not arguing against it, but are the people that are arguing for it thinking, well, now we're going to be a playoff team? Are they thinking it's going to make us a playoff team? Are they thinking maybe he makes us a little bit more respectable so we can then attract other players and not be a joke franchise? Like, he's certainly not the long-term answer, right? And if we brought him in, it's a huge gamble, because he had reconstructive surgery on his shoulder, right? And he hasn't looked good in a long time. He never really looked that good for the Saints. So it's been a while since he's done anything. And then you got the argument that were people, and this baffles my mind, who didn't like him even when he was on the Raiders, which baffles my mind, considering we haven't had a 4,000-yard quarterback in my lifetime. And he used to get 4,000 yards passing every year. But I just it leaves me like that, just wondering what are the goals and expectations if we were to bring Derek Carr, even if he worked out in the best possible scenario, what would the expectations for the team be?
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's very different, like, looking at the situation the Jets were going into in 2023 and now 3 years later in 2026. One, the Jets felt as if they had a, competitive roster and they needed a veteran quarterback to put them over the top. And they went the Aaron Rodgers route instead, but Derek Carr was someone who was in the mix. And I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't think it was a bad option. I thought, with understood the swing with Rodgers and why they went all in. If
Sure.
that wasn't a realistic option, then pivoting to Derek Carr could have said, okay, I understand that. It's a little bit different for me now, though, 3 years later, because one, he wasn't in the NFL a year ago. He had to retire because of, these injuries. But he was hurt a lot that last year in New Orleans. And, he's coming off of a labral tear and a rotator cuff issue in his mid 30s. I don't have confidence in him being able to stay healthy throughout an entire NFL season at now 35 years old. I think obviously pre-injury and 3 years younger at 32, a little different story, right? But now in his mid 30s with a couple very serious shoulder injuries, I think is a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are the kind of injuries where there hasn't been tremendous success stories. Most of the time, they're never the same. We watched we've dealt with this. We watched Ken O'Brien and Chad Pennington. The two times we've had quarterbacks that look like we finally solved the problem, have torn rotator cuffs and have it really impact them and sideline, and you leave Green Bean screaming, why can't we ever have nice things? So to get a guy coming back from a major, shoulder surgery, you're playing a position where, it's about throwing the ball. And I don't know if Derek Carr really ever had the strongest arm in the world. I'm not sure of exactly where he ranks, so I'm not saying he had a weak arm, but I never thought of him as a big arm, strong arm quarterback anyway, to begin with. I don't know, man. When I think about it, if the goal is to win as many games as you possibly can, which it definitely is for Aaron Glenn, right? There's no question about it. If I'm Aaron Glenn, I'm thinking I got to save my job, right? So what am I doing? I'm not going to, in no world would I take Derek Carr in that circumstance over like a Kirk Cousins. And I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is anything amazing, but based on what's out there, if you had to save your job and win as many games as you could, would you take Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins?
I would take Kirk Cousins. I would take, because he played in the league last year, and they're around the same age. Cousins might be a year or two older, but also Kirk Cousins at his peak is better than Derek Carr at his peak too. Like I think that has to factor into the equation.
Yeah, and just he doesn't have the question of, is he even going to be able to play effectively? Like, we don't know, like, how you're getting a guy who's just out of a major surgery. You don't know, and he was terrible before the surgery, on the Saints going into that. So you have no idea what you're getting. If you're Aaron Glenn, even if you have them equal or have it, or even if you had Derek Carr a little better, even if you disagreed with that take that you just gave, one is he's healthy and you're exactly what you're getting. The other, you don't even know what you're going to get. You might get a guy that comes out and has no arm strength. Imagine if you're in Aaron Glenn's shoes, you're trying to save your job. You have to win games. I just can't think of another quarterback out there that's going to be available that puts you in a better position than Cousins to win games.
Yeah, and I guess the question then, which you brought up too, is like, what's the goal of this season? And if they're pairing him with a young quarterback, if Derek Carr was to get hurt after a couple games, you could always go to that young quarterback. I think it's it's an interesting name because it wasn't really talked about until like it was just announced a few days ago that he's interested in coming back. But I don't know. I'm curious to see like what everyone in here is saying. It feels like there's kind of mixed reviews on Derek Carr.
I haven't seen a lot of. I'm looking for someone to say you're nuts. Kirk Cousins stinks. Derek Carr is better. I haven't seen any of that yet, so I'm looking for that. Look, I'm the first to say none of these options are great. None of them are.
No.
None of them are ideal. None of them are what we're looking for, right? When you, in terms of rebuilding around a great quarterback who's going to be around here for years and win us lots of games, there's not a lot of names you could throw out there that there's going to be any consensus in this fan base that everybody's excited and happy. There's very little, few and far between. Even when people say Burrows, as excited as people get, saying, "Oh yeah, trade whatever you can, get Burrows," there are still people who say no.
Sure.
That wouldn't want Burrows. So there's never going to be consensus. But when you look realistically at the names that are out there and who we might bring in and who our quarterback is going to be, I don't think it's going to be anyone that unites this fan base in excitement. It's going to be some people happy, some people really upset, probably most people really upset.
Yeah, we have Jonathan Lee saying, "For the love of God, no Derek Carr." Then you have Stainless Ninja, an entertaining season would be cool.
Yeah.
Carr didn't have surgery. That doesn't make me feel any better.
Right. Okay. He didn't have surgery. He waited. Right. He waited the year for it to heal. I thought he had reconstructive surgery. I don't know who said that, or maybe that was what was recommended, and that he ignored and instead rested. But then I stand corrected. But either way, okay, so his arm's feeling better now. How many games into the season until he says it starts hurting again? Because do those kind of injuries really ever heal itself at his age?
At 35 too, right? It's different if you're 25 years old and face an injury. At 35, it's a little different for me at that point.
At least if there was a surgery, there would be hope that he'd come back healthy,
I'd be like, what he did the Irish Catholic way, just to ignore your problems and hope they go away on their own.
I mean, there are some injuries that do heal that way, where it is an option, but it certainly doesn't leave you a good feeling.
No, it doesn't. Like this one from Boss Girl. I want to pull that up. I'm wrong one. They're flying in. Is Derek's older brother available? David Carr. Yeah, let's get David Carr in here. Sure. Why not?
Wasn't he on the Giants? David Carr?
He was. He was a longtime backup for the Giants after things kind of flamed out there in Houston. He was in a brutal situation, man.
Yeah.
This is a fair one from Sean. We don't know Cousins. I don't know what the last word. Abulite?
Cousins Abulite?
Don't know, but ability maybe.
We don't know
if he's health wise.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I mean, I feel like Cousins has been in the league a long time, and you kind of have as good a feel of what you're going to get than anybody else that we could name. I heard everybody was on the Malik Willis, band train of, before everybody just assumed he's going to go to Miami. And it's like, that guy has a 4-game sample size, right? So that was the problem there. I mean, there's just no ideal answer, right? There's no ideal answer for this year. I mean, and someone said to be entertaining, to give us an entertaining season. I think that's a great answer, to be honest. I think that's the best possible answer is, get us a guy it's going to make the team watchable so we could at least have football and have, and not just be disgusted on Sundays because we know it's going to be just gross.
Okay, here we go. Finally, we got someone finally fired up in the chat. Mr. Bruno, I feel that people are stupid who want to poo-poo Derek Carr. The guy was good. That's why there are examinations to determine he can play. Was good? Yeah, he was good at one point in his NFL career. And that's what you're looking at maybe 3-4 years ago. 2022, I think, was probably his last good year. I don't think New Orleans fans are really all too happy with his play the 2 years that he was there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't poop. For me speaking, I don't think I'm personally poo-pooing him. I'm saying I'm speaking as Aaron Glenn and being honest. Like if I'm Aaron Glenn, I'm looking and I'm thinking, isn't that a huge gamble for me? Here's a guy who hasn't played well in a long time, who certainly had a messed up shoulder, which is probably the reason why he hasn't played well. And I'm going to gamble that from medical examinations that not that he's ready to, not only that he's ready to play, but that there's no medical examination is there that's really going to predict whether it's going to hold up. And without like a definitive surgery, I just don't know. I mean, he might hold up, but again, when you look at it from the perspective of Aaron Glenn, he is coaching for his job now, right? We all agree there's no way he's just has a free pass for another year. He's got to show improvement. So I'm not poo-pooing on him. I'm just saying, realistically, is he where you're going to push those chips if your job is on the line over a guy who has been relatively healthy and actually played well at the end of the year for Atlanta?
Shout out to Peter S. Check out the pinned comment as well in the chat on Peter S. But says there are just no quarterbacks on the quote scrap heap that can really help this team. Draft a young one that Musgrave can develop. I think that's the key point here is, and maybe we're looking at this just the completely wrong way. I feel like we're all arguing and trying to pick favorites of our veteran quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I guess is there really that much of a difference between Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, and like any other guy who's going to be available on the market? My argument is probably not, right?
Right. From the standpoint of, is it going to make us this playoffs team and change our fortune around and change our future and give us the future guy? None of them really do that, right? Either way, I think everybody agrees. I think we're all on the same page. Whether it's this year or next year, there's going to be a quarterback drafted, maybe both years. Maybe this year we take a shot on day 3 or day 2. And then next year, if that doesn't work out, we're ready to use one of our big picks to grab a guy next year. I mean, I think we all agree that the quarterback that's playing in 4 years from now or 3 years from now, we're all hoping is going to be some quarterback that we drafted and we got the pick right.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the Jets decide to do in the draft with that position, because they could go early. Like if they, obviously not Fernando Mendoza, but if they like Ty Simpson, they could do that relatively early in this draft, or they can take a flyer on someone outside of round 1 at pretty much any point, or they just completely forego it altogether and say, we're going to go the veteran route because we didn't like anybody this year. But we don't know that yet. And I feel like maybe you'll hear some rumblings after the NFL Combine. That's kind of when everyone starts, to get together and start focusing on the next year a little bit. But for right now, I don't know what their plan is. And it feels like they can go in a million different directions here at that quarterback position.
Yeah, I have a feeling that a couple of guys are going to, like every year. I don't know how far up the board they'll get, but I have a feeling that there are going to be some names, whether it's Trinidad or whether Ty Simpson comes back more into the conversation because he's kind of left the conversation for a lot of people. Not for everyone, of course. I just think that you're right. Like the combines and that always brings people up the board. Things happen, people rise, people come, at it. It's seemingly nowhere. So I think we're going to see what happens. And I think there's going to be probably, outside of Mendoza, of course, I think there's going to be 3 to 4 names that are going to become the primary names that you're going to see Jet fans bouncing around and fighting over. So the same way we're fighting over the old guys and the veterans, we're going to be fighting over who to take out of these day 2, day 3 guys and when to take them. Like you'll have people saying we should take Ty Simpson at 16. Some people say only if he's there at like 45. Some people say no way, only if it's at 105, right? So I think that those are the conversations that are ahead of us that are going to come next.
This next one says, to me, this Carr convo is a little strange just because of the quarterback coach. He kind of seems like the opposite of what we need. We need stability at bridge, not a recent retiree who's injury prone. I like this point a lot because, like I said, it wasn't just the one shoulder issue that kept him out, last year. The final year he played in the NFL, there were other injuries. I believe he had a concussion as well and something with his hand that year, if memory serves correct. But Point being, those things usually don't get better as you get older. It unfortunately usually gets worse, the injuries as you go on. And like he also said, part of the conversation too, for him to come out of retirement and play is that it's got to be the right situation. Is he looking at this Jets team and going, yeah, this is the right situation for me to come back and play? I don't know. I don't know. I think he'd probably look for a team that is maybe a little bit further along that would be looking for a veteran quarterback like a Minnesota, for example, to compete with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, that would make more sense. Like if JJ's not the guy, then as opposed to Tigo was saying this morning on our private text chat, he was saying Kirk Cousins will go to Minnesota, and I was like, no way he's going to Minnesota, because in my opinion, why would he go and have to fight to start? Minnesota is not going to sit there and say, JJ, you're benched automatically. Whoever they bring in is going to compete and then be kind of like an emergency valve. But the way they finished their season, JJ was playing a little bit better. He's only started 11 games so far in his career. They traded up and used the number 10 pick on him. They're not giving up on him. So I agree. That would be a place for Carr to go for sure, right? And prove it, earn it, if JJ is really not ready or if he's not the guy. But Kirk Cousins is looking to go to a place, I would think, where he knows he's going to be the starter.
No, exactly. That to me would make a lot more sense. And obviously, we have to see how that ends up playing out. But I like this comment, so I want to pull it up there as well. Here's one from Boss Girl. A competent quarterback can bring wins if we use draft capital and cap space to build the defense. That's going to be a big topic of conversation with the amount of cap space that they have and the amount of picks that they have. Do you have a preferred approach? Because like we said, the Jets, they have all these assets and the cap space, the whole thing, and they can go a different number of routes. Are you someone who's like, let's spend in free agency on defense and then focus on the draft on the offensive side of the ball, or mix and match? What's your feel here?
I'm best player to build the roster, best player available. If, for example, if Sonny Styles, I'm really hoping there's a way we can get him. I really hope he's there at 16. I love the player, so don't get me wrong. But let's say we draft somebody at 2. There's no trade partner. We're stuck at 16. Sonny Styles goes off the board at 8 or 9, or Dallas takes him way before we can get him. I have no problem taking Lemon and shifting my preference to offense and grabbing him at wide receiver. I just say you take the best, most impactful player. To me, it's a 2-year rebuild, which doesn't mean I don't want to compete next year and I don't want them to get as good as they can get. What it means, though, is we need more positions than we can fill in one draft or free agency. I mean, we could fill them, but as far as being the true answer, I believe it's going to probably take 2 years based on what our roster looks like, how bad our defense was. So I'm not particularly married to which of those positions have to be filled when. To me, It's over the next 2 drafts and off seasons, we need to fill all these spots. And that's why I'm willing to shift to just best player available at this point, in those positions of need. So, you couldn't be more opposite, right? Linebacker or wide receiver, I'd be happy with either one at 16. It's not about position. It's not about offense and defense to me. We need some help on offense. We definitely need more help on defense. There's more holes. But at the end of the day, to be a serious team, I think we need another playmaker on offense as well, moving forward in the future.
Oh, definitely. I think there's different approaches that they could take, but I just tend to, whenever I've looked at the free agent names that are set, like who could actually have a chance of hitting the market, I think it would be easier for the Jets to fill some needs on the defensive side of the ball at positions of need. Like there's a few safeties hitting the market that I like, and that's a big position of need. Like I'm okay spending $12 to $15 million a year on a better safety with the money that they have, or linebackers, another position. Like, I mean, we've done, I feel like at least the last couple of years, Jeremy, you and I on tampering day go live and talk about it. 12:02, Alex Anzalone linked to the New York Jets. Like that would not surprise me at all, right? Like that's the first thing out of the gate. So,
but if we signed a guy like Anzalone, I would still argue that if he's there, we would draft a linebacker.
Oh, because they need multiple, right? Like that exactly.
They need multiple, and they need for future.
Right. And as we know, Anzalone's what, 31, 32 years old. That's not a fix for the next 5 years, but they've talked a lot about Aaron Glenn adding guys who are familiar with his system and coming in and teaching and taking on these leadership roles. Like that fits that bill, but it doesn't necessarily fix the position for the next 5 years.
Right. And that's why it makes sense in the sense of like, why would we get him then? Like you just said, he knows the system, he knows the defense, he knows Aaron Glenn. And it is sometimes in some areas, it's nice to have a veteran when you know you're going to be drafting and bringing in young guys into a room. Why not have a guy that's a veteran that has familiarity with the coach?
I like that. How about this is a hot take from our friends over at Jets Worldwide. I don't know if this is I'm going to assume Snowball. Could be Johnny, though. Saying that I could see Cousins being a Raider. Do you think that they are a team that could be in the mix for a veteran quarterback? Or do you think they're out of the conversation with Mendoza likely as the number 1 pick?
I just don't think Cousins is going to go. I mean, I could be wrong, but my guess is that Cousins wants to play. Right. I mean, I don't know the guy personally, so I can't guarantee that, but don't you think Cousins wants to play?
I would think so, which is why I know the contract stinks in Atlanta, but I think he would leave Atlanta because I think they brought in Kevin Stefanski to try to fix Michael Penix. And if that doesn't work out, then they could draft their own guy in 2027. I don't why would he go to the Raiders? Would they start him and sit Mendoza? I don't really see that happening either. Like, I think sure, if the Raiders want a different veteran quarterback than Geno Smith to back up Fernando Mendoza, okay, that's maybe a different combo. But I think Cousins is going to go somewhere where he has a real chance to start.
Right. And I'm not ruling out from before Minnesota completely, but I'm just saying if someone said, why would he go to the Jets over the Vikings? My answer would be the only reason I could think of other than money is with the Jets, it's guaranteed he's starting. With Minnesota, he's competing with JJ for the job.
Right. Big difference. Going to the NFL draft here for a second. Jonathan Lee says, Arvell Reese is a blue chip. Are we confident we have the proper coaching development on this team to get the most out of him? Reese will need it, and coaching matters. You know what? Maybe this is a good pivot point and starting to get into some of those coaching changes that the Jets are making and just maybe potential scheme changes too. I would really not be all that surprised that I'm not the only one saying this. Like a lot of people said this, that the Jets, like reading breadcrumbs, maybe switching to a 3-4 defense. If that's the case, I think Arvell Reese as the pick at number 2 makes a hell of a lot more sense if they're playing a 3-4 versus a 4-3 defense. What do you say?
Yeah, I've been saying like for a long time, I was like, when we were looking for a coordinator, I've been saying personnel matters and, what you're going to play a 4-3 or 3-4. And I think at one point, a big thing I said was, well, if we take Arvell Reese, it probably definitely means we're going to see some 3-4. Otherwise, I'm very concerned because not that I'm saying he can't do it. I think it's too early to say that 100%. But I personally wouldn't. If they drafted Reese, I would be very concerned if it was a 4-3 and you draft Reese and you're going to suddenly stick this kid with his hand in the dirt, lining up every play on the edge. I would think that is kind of not utilizing his talent and his ability. I think if they take Reese, I think it means by definition, you're going to see a lot of 3-4 because I see him more in that role. I see him and not just staying on the outside. I'm talking about moving him around a lot, right? And using his versatility to move him around a lot. And then not that Bain can't play in a 3-4, but I always saw it as, he's the guy if you're going 4-3 that you'd line up to put his hand in the dirt all day.
And I mean, the Jets brought back Carl Dunbar for their defensive line coach. He's had a lot of success in this league, not only with the Jets in the Rex Ryan era, but then also with the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 7 years or so. I think he's would be a great coach for someone like Arvell Reese, and I would feel pretty confident in him being able to get the most out of a player like that.
Well, I mean, we could worry about it all we want. Like Jonathan Lee, I understand like your concern when you look at the coaching staff and you don't trust the Jets coaches. That's fine, but you have to understand from their perspective of them drafting, they're certainly not going to say, "Well, Arvell Reese is going to need really good coaching. We don't have that, so we better not take him. He needs good coaching." Because they don't believe that. In their brains, they see themselves as great coaches. They believe in themselves. They're thinking we're going to be the best people to develop Arvell Reese because that's how people think. Can you imagine going to Woody Johnson and explaining the pick? Well, we're not going to pick Reese because we don't have the coaching staff to develop him. He's going to be like, well, didn't we just hire a whole new defensive staff? You're saying that we hired guys that we don't trust to develop a prospect. So this is all in our brains. But as far as what they're actually going to do, they believe that they could develop anybody, right? I mean, I would even hope that, even if it's not true.
Absolutely.
I hope we didn't just hire a coaching staff that doesn't believe they're capable of developing a prospect.
Perfect. I like that a lot. I think that's a good point. Mr. Bruno, kind of on the same page here, says, I'm cautiously optimistic because of the coaching changes. Frank Reich, Musgroves, and a veteran quarterback like a Derek Carr, provided he's healthy, and Denbar working with that defensive line, and Arvell Reese. So kind of just going off of I want to take the coaching angle on this. Like we talked a lot of the Derek Carr angle, but what do you make of the addition of someone like Bill Musgrave as the quarterback coach, as someone who's been an offensive coordinator in this league for a long time and also been a quarterback's coach for numerous teams in this league?
I have no complaints about the offensive coaching staff. I am not waving a flag and celebrating and saying we got an elite offensive coaching staff. But I will say this was much better than I thought it was going to be 3 weeks ago. And I'm not going to lie about that. I look at this now and I'm thinking this is not that bad, right? It might even be good. I don't know. It depends on which version of these guys we're going to get. And sometimes the versions of the guy you're going to get, roster matters, situation matters, right? There are lots of coaches where they have a list of places they've been, quarterbacks they've coached. Some don't look impressive and some look very impressive. So sometimes it does have to do with who the player is, how you connect with them, the system that you're playing. All those things matter. But overall, I share that optimism too, in the sense that it's not the terrible mess that it was a month ago. Like these are experienced coaches have all had success at some point in their careers. They've all had some level of success. There's experience there. They're not clowns. I'll say that. They're not clowns.
No, they're not. And I think the process of how they got there was a little bit ass backwards, but I think what makes me intrigued with this group, and just talking specifically on the offensive side, is there with Frank Reich and Bill Musgrave. Like those are your two veteran guys who've been around the league for a long time. But you also, on top of that, add a Seth Ryan, who is, 31 years old and was working with Ben Johnson and helped out with installing some of the trick plays that they ran, or, Matthew Sargent that he took with him from Stanford. So you kind of have this blend of both the youth and innovation side and the been there and proven and done it before side. And at least I could say that they are taking a different approach than they were a year ago with a much more youthful and inexperienced coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree. You always want to have some young guys in there because you never know when you're going to have the next Ben Johnson, right? Every great coach that we covet and wish that we could have, they were once some young coach you never heard of, right? That came up the ranks and made the name for themselves. So just like with players, you want to have youth, right? You want to have guys developing, because you never know when you're going to get that coach. We don't know anything about Seth Ryan yet completely. We know he comes from a good pedigree, right? He was raised in this, but who knows? Maybe he'll be this great coach someday, and maybe he won't. But the point is, we don't have a staff of him. If he had a whole staff where it was only guys like that, then that's a problem. But when you have veteran proven guys, and like you said, some young guys mixed in there, I think that's healthy.
We got one from Grandizer 12. Question. Hi, Matt and Uncle Jeremy. One, How much loyalty do the Jets have to quarterback Brady Cook, potential future starter or career backup, to your top 2026 quarterback draft prospects that are on your wish list? I'm going to let you take this one first.
I would say that, Brady Cook is ceiling would be he finds a way to stick around, hold the clipboard, maybe develop into a backup quarterback. I don't know. Either way, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, whether he's here or not here in the future. But I'm not going to write him off and say he has no chance at all in the world. But I absolutely do not see him as a potential future starter based on his performance. But he was a rookie. It's not like he was in the greatest situations. So I'm not going to sit there and say it's impossible. Weirder, stranger things have happened, but it's not going to affect our personnel decisions. We're not going to say we don't have to draft a quarterback. We'll just keep developing Brady Cook. Like, I don't think you're going to see that happen. So, yeah. So for him, maybe he'll be a career backup quarterback. That's I would guess that's his ceiling. Top 3 quarterback draft prospects that are on your wish list. I don't know if I have a top 3 that are on my wish list. I mean, I think that obviously I would have loved Mendoza. I think that I don't really love like as far as our top 4 picks. I mean, or for our top 2 picks in the first round, I'm certainly not a big fan of taking anyone. There's no one on my wish list. Second round, I start to warm up to guys like Simpson. And then anything after that, third round, if we trade back or if we end up making trades and get a third round pick or 103, our fourth round pick, like anything like that, I don't know. I guess I would just I'd have that little bit of hope for guys like Trinidad, guys like Drew Aller, guys like Sawyer Robertson. These are guys that I know they're dart throws. I'm not sitting there endorsing them, but I'm saying if they took them, I'd be curious to see what they, to see if maybe one of them hits. But I'm not sitting there. I wouldn't call them on my wish list.
No, I'll start with the Brady Cook thing. I think he's someone who's going to just kind of be like that camp arm and play in the second half of these preseason games kind of thing. I don't really see him as a rosterable quarterback in the NFL unless he takes some serious strides this offseason. But based on what we saw, I think, you're looking at like a QB 3 or 4 that plays, in August a bunch. And for the NFL draft, like my top 3 quarterbacks are Mendoza, Simpson, Nussmeier. I don't think Mendoza is a realistic option for the Jets, unfortunately, because I think he goes number 1 overall. Simpson and Nussmeier are after that, like, I guess Chambliss, but the issue with Chambliss is you may have to draft him earlier than you'd probably want to based off the 1 year. But I feel like, to me, I don't have really a strong conviction on very many of these quarterbacks outside of Mendoza. I really like Fernando Mendoza. I think he is someone who I would feel like totally confident in if the Jets were drafting. Pretty much every one of the other of these guys, I'm at best 50-50 on.
Yeah. And by the way, as far as that question about Brady Cook and how loyal we are, when I talk about him, we don't want to be too judgmental of him, because let's remember, he is an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just wanted to say that for Dano as well. He needed that reminder too. He was undrafted. So, I mean, what should our expectations be?
This is true. Let's see what else we got on there. Cook wasn't drafted. I can't see him sticking, says Paul O'Brien. I mean, like I said, they need people to play in these preseason games. If they drafted someone, I'm sure they're going to get some decent amount of snaps. But if they brought in a Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, whatever veteran, they're probably not playing a ton in the preseason. Like, how many drives did Justin Fields get this past year? 3, I think, total in the entire preseason.
Brady Cook is going to probably take more snaps in preseason than anybody else. I mean, right. We'll see who we draft and what happens in this roster. But right now, if you were to say who's the favorite to get the most reps in preseason, it's Brady Cook.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one from Mr. Bruno. He wants to know if you would still take a late round flyer on Klubnik. I remember you were big on him.
Yeah,
Obviously, he had
Klubnik
a tough
is
year this year.
well, Klubnik had the same kind of thing as Drew Aller, right? I mean, there was a time where I loved both those guys because their film was great. They were exciting, and there was a lot to like about them. And then they both, and this is why with Ty Simpson, when you say, why does it matter? He's only played 14 games. This is the answer, because a guy can look really good in 12 to 14 games, but like sometimes you want to see 30 games, right? To see if they can maintain it. And, Klubnik is kind of on the Drew Aller thing with me. It's like there were times where he looked really good and times I thought he had really good film, but, he wasn't able to be consistent. And, you're not going to use a valuable draft pick on a guy who, like out of college to be your prospect. I don't think you're not going to invest a lot in a guy who couldn't maintain consistency. So I would put him in the same, in that kind of bucket. I'd put him as a guy that day 3, if they want to throw a dart on one of these guys, then, it's a day 3 pick. I'm never against that. I think especially a team like us who's like been searching for a quarterback forever. You want to throw day 3 picks on quarterbacks you could do it every draft for all I care. And maybe we'll hit one day, because it doesn't happen often, but teams obviously have hit on day 3 quarterback selections.
Yeah, and also too, like when you look at it for the Jets draft class in 2026, they have 12 picks, and 8 of those picks are on day 3 right now. Now they can move them around and they could trade. Maybe like I have something that I mentioned a lot is I'd like to see some of those, 6th and 7th round picks get traded for veteran players who could be like a cap casualty type of guy. But if you have 8 swings on day 3, man, one of them being on a quarterback, when the Jets quarterback room right now is Justin Fields, who's likely to be a June 1st cut. Tyrod Taylor's not here. Brady Cook is here, and Bailey Zappi. Like, I mean, come on. Like, I don't know how we could get upset at them for taking some sort of swing at it.
I'm going to say something that I'm not saying that I'm predicting, and it's not, and people are going to not agree with it at all as a possibility. But I will argue that if he shows up healthy to the combines, there is a chance that he will win enough favor that you will see a guy like Drew Aller get drafted on day 2 in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah, of course. And Aller, especially because I feel like for him, like the GMs and the scouts who who fall in love with traits, I think they're going to be big on Drew Aller, because I'm not going to deny it. I think he absolutely has traits and tools. For me, it's a consistency issue, and we haven't, actually seen it in on tape on the field enough for me personally.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that a scout isn't going to see that, or a coach isn't going to see that and go, oh, I can fix that. I can work with that. I can mold from that. And maybe it does go in the 2nd or 3rd round at that point.
And the reason I say that too is because one of the things that fuels me saying that is there's 32 teams, right? And it only takes one. So if one team at those at the combines look at him and say, man, that guy has a cannon of an arm, I would love to just take a shot and see what we could do with him. Like, it only takes one, whether it's the wrong decision or not, it only takes one. And we've seen crazier things. I mean, we are the fans of a team that took hacking crap, in the 2nd round. So like, we've seen it happen. Like, we see it happen all the time where people will reach for a quarterback much earlier. So even if you disagree with it and think he stinks and it's the dumbest thing in the world, the reason I'm saying that you could easily see it happen is there's 32 teams. And crazier things at quarterback have happened than that.
We got a couple super chats here back to back that I want to pull out. Thank you, Abbott. He's up first. Says, how about Carr, Simpson, and Aller for the quarterback room? That sounds pretty damn good to me. Keep throwing darts until we get a quarterback. That's one of those where you have your veteran, you have a 1st round rookie in Simpson, and you have a day 3 rookie, and you're just hoping one of those things hit, right? Like, would it be my plan? I don't know if I would draft 2 quarterbacks and also sign a bigger name guy in Derek Carr as the vet, but I mean, it's the most important position. So if you're going to take the swing, I guess go all in, right?
Yeah, I mean, Allar is my favorite dart pick. If you said who's your favorite dart pick, if they picked a guy not in those top 4 picks, but like later after that, who would be your favorite toss? Personally, for me, it's Allar, because yes, I once was totally loved him as a prospect, and then obviously, like everybody else, I soured to an extent on him by what I saw, and it wasn't good, and the injury doesn't help either. But for me, if you're going to throw a dart, at it and take a shot, I watched a lot of his film and I see there's a lot of attributes there. Um, this would be an interesting room, and it would be the one thing I would like about this is this would provide a very good opportunity that Ty Simpson would play. Meaning, if Derek Carr was the veteran guy that started, I would think there's a high probability that Simpson would get into games and play. And the reason that would be important to me is because if Derek Carr played the whole year and Simpson and Allar sat behind him, it doesn't give me any information of what to do in 2027.
No, yeah, and you feel like you got to know, or at least have some sort of idea before you go into the 2027 draft, because you don't want to end up. You talked about Christian Hackenberg before. The Jets said, no, we're good on the 2027 draft because we took Hackenberg in the second round and we haven't seen him in an NFL game, and then he never played. So you don't want to get stuck in that boat either.
Yeah, you mean hack and crap.
Hack and crap. Yes, that's right. Hack and crap. See, Jay Taylor chimes in. A hill I will happily die on. Nussmeier will be a better NFL quarterback than he's getting credit for. I just hope it's with us, but it'll be with someone else. For me, of the quarterbacks outside of round 1, he's probably a day 2 guy, which I think the argument or the quote that you had is for Allar. If you were to take someone outside of the first 2 rounds, Allar would be your guy. For me, it would be Nussmeier outside of the first round, because I think with him, he was at one point going into last year, and same with Allar, looked at as maybe the top quarterback in the class. I think what we found out after the year with him playing through some, core muscle injuries throughout the year, I think that was a big factor into why he didn't play well this year on LSU. And I don't want to completely get rid of the 2024 and previous tape that he had and only rely on this past year when he was playing hurt. So I think that would be my swing personally.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about Nussmeier is probably the most equipped right now to run an NFL huddle.
Okay.
I think he's the most seasoned, like lots of games, lots of experience, very calm, cool, collected, really good leader for the offense. Like when I watched him play, the one thing is he looks very seasoned. He looks very confident, very in control, very in charge. So maybe of all the prospects other than Mendoza, which I'll leave out of this conversation because it's a different skills, like he's Mendoza. Right? We all want him. But like out of all these other guys, I think that I would definitely feel the most confident with him as far as the leader, the guy who would have step in and lead the offense and, and get confidence of the huddle and command of the huddle. I would agree that Nussmeier is probably the most capable of that.
I like this comment. Matt and Jeremy, I am assuming that the Jets may leave no stone unturned. This week it's Derek Carr. Last week, Malik Willis. Who'll be the next choice next week? I don't know. Is there someone else who they could pull out of retirement? Oh, Tua,
yeah. Not retirement, but there's a little bit of momentum with Tua going around, and that's gonna freak people out. They're gonna be like, no, but I've heard things about that. I've heard that Tua's gonna, like, if Miami really parts ways with him, he's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw him under the bus right now, but Ryan has been about as high on anyone as Tua. So you have people out there who would be interested in it. I don't like it with the injury history that he's had. I think he's one hit away from a career ender. And when it goes under 40 degrees, they don't usually play all that well. And he doesn't play all that well on the elements. My stance on Tua is I think he should go to a dome team. I think he'd be perfect for Minnesota, Arizona, one of those teams for to be a bridge or spot guy. But I don't think in the Northeast out in the elements is good for him.
I would say Arizona where it's warm.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
No. But yeah, I mean, you never know who what the next flavor of the week is going to be, right? So we'll see. And every year there's like rumors start about trades, and some guy's not happy, like with the whole Burrows thing. Like you just never know. Like I'm sure there's going to be over the weeks that we do this show, there's going to be multiple names that pop up. Like 2 weeks from now might look very different than now in what we're talking about as far as quarterback.
Yeah. I wanted to pull this next one up from Abbott here saying, post your nightmare Jets quarterback next season. I'll start Kyler Murray. Abbott is definitely not the only one on that. You agree with that one, Jeremy?
I agree with that because of the resources it would take to get him, the money that we'd be giving, whatever the possible trade would be. That would be my problem with it, because I don't see him that much better than any of the other options. He's not the future to me. He's already, like, are we really putting a roster around him any better than Arizona did? He's injury prone. He's missed almost 50% of his games the last 3 years. And what really bothers me about him the most would be the resources it would take to get him. I would think he's going to hurt this team we're trying to build here. We don't need to be giving away a lot of resource for a guy who's not the answer.
Yeah, I think he would. This is going to come across the wrong way, but I think he would be the most exciting. Not that I would be excited for him. However, like from the Woody Johnson, I'm trying to sell ticket scenario. This was a number 1 overall pick. He was a Pro Bowler a couple times. He just needs to be unlocked. It was a bad situation in Arizona. And that would try to be the sell. I do find it very concerning that there were multiple people who were at the Super Bowl that kept saying, pretty much anyone who came up to them was saying that you do not want Kyler Murray to be the next Jets quarterback. And that a former teammate of Kyler Murray said, you don't want Kyler Murray to be your next quarterback. That doesn't make me feel very good.
No, definitely not. That is just, I don't think that we should put any real resource into a guy unless that guy is a potential answer. And I just don't see Kyler Murray as a potential answer. I mean, why go, is he that much better than just getting a guy that's a free agent and bringing in a guy in for 1 year, bridge year, And I agree. I agree with the excitement factor. It would be the biggest move as far as trying to drum excitement, right? Trying to capture our imagination.
Sure.
As far as his age, that he's not as old, and that he has he has the mobility thing also, but also he's had moments where he's been a good passing quarterback. It's just that overall, it feels like he hasn't really gotten, if anything, he's regressed since his rookie and sophomore years.
Yeah. His first 3 years in the league were pretty good. I don't want this to be like Kyler Murray was never good in the NFL. That's not fair to him.
Right.
But the last 4 years, 11, 8, 17, and 5 games. So he's missed 5+ games in 3 of the last 4 years. He missed 12 this year, 9 3 years ago. And like you said, it's unfortunately it's regressed, I pretty much think, ever since Cliff Kingsbury left. And that makes me nervous. I don't know if Frank Reich and co are going to be able to get him back to 2020 Kyler Murray form.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And it's the injury history. Come on, with the Jets. How many times are we going to go through this? Like, anytime we get a guy that has any kind of injury history, the second he gets injured, 80% of the fan base is like marching on one Jets drive about how stupid this organization is. Like, we have the worst luck when it comes to injuries. And the one thing I thought we all agree on is not to get injury prone guys. He's 3 seasons in a row, he has not been able to play the full season. And in 2 of those 3 seasons, he's missed more than half the season. So it's not me pooing on him. I'm not, it's not me turning my back on his ability and what he can do, or saying that he wasn't a good quarterback or he doesn't have a lot of skill. It's just the reality is I'm not even blaming him. He's just injury prone. It's just bad luck, whatever you want to call it. But is that really our answer? Is to get a guy who just can't stay healthy? That hasn't worked that well for us.
No. And as Mr. Bruno is saying here, Kyler Murray isn't Frank Reich's type of quarterback, right? No, he normally he likes the more traditional style of quarterbacks. There's, the pocket passer and tall and, all those traits. Murray isn't. He's 5'10", and he runs around a little bit. And I'm not saying that he couldn't work with him or, no one can, but that doesn't seem like Frank Reich's type of guy. And also it doesn't seem like Aaron Glenn's type of guy. There was a quote going around of Glenn on a podcast from a few years ago talking about Kyler Murray and how his defense had some of the best games against Kyler Murray because they knew all they had to do was blitz the crap out of him and he wasn't going to be able to process it.
Yeah, and M123 makes a great point about winning 8 to 9 games and giving AG, that's AG's goal. I agree with that 100%. Like AG might want to do it for sure. Because who's going to give you the miracle of 8 to 9 wins? I agree with this 100%. If he stayed healthy, is there a guy out there that would give us the better chance? I think that's debatable. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I don't disagree with this statement at all. But I'm not talking as AG. I'm talking as a guy long-term. The resource it would take to get Kyler Murray, to me, is not worth the risk because the chances we win 8, 9 games with him is still very, very slim. And then the odds are we're going to end up, whether it's 6 wins, 7 wins, we're going to end up without a playoff season. And I don't know long-term if he's the answer. And now we've given up resources when in a time where we really need to be building out our roster. So, but I don't disagree with that at all. If I'm Aaron Glenn and my primary goal is who gives me the best chance to save my job, maybe I want to gamble on maybe I want to gamble on Kyler Murray. I get it. And that concerns me. That's why I hate having a coach on the hot seat because their goals might not be as the same as what's best for the organization long term.
No, like you said, they might be pushing to try to save their job, which again puts this team in a very tough spot. So that's where we're going to leave it for this week. We're approaching the top of the hour here, so we're going to close it there. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Please make sure to like and subscribe before you head out. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right.